Hey, do you want to have a better memory? Do you want to be better at taking tests? Do you want to just simply memorize your grocery list? Any of these things, if you're interested in any of these things, stay tuned to our Mysteries with me, Mr. E, and we're going to be exploring all things mysterious in the world of psychology. So, if you were with us for our last episode, we talked a little bit about memory and how we get things stored into the memory, how we retrieve things out of memory, and just frankly, how we can improve our memory, right? Something called elaborative rehearsal, where we get meaning that's connected to a lot of the things that we're memorizing. Today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a little bit of piece about how we become uh, better at remembering things and also becoming more aware of who we are and how we think. So there are two terms that we're going to be talking about today. One of them is called testing effect, and the second one is called metacognition. So we'll start off with testing effect. A testing effect is actually a way to test yourself to see how prepared you are in taking a test, being prepared for whatever it is that you are preparing for, a speech, whatever. And so a lot of students and a lot of people that are preparing to perform something, what you do with the things that you need to memorize is you become more and more familiar with them. And familiarity is good and bad. So familiarity gives you this confidence that are familiar with a lot of these things that you need to remember, that you need to discuss, whatever. But familiarity can give you very much a false level of confidence. So my students, I talk up to them about studying, and we talk about this little piece. When I ask them if they don't do particularly well at a test, and I ask them, well, how did you study? And they say something like, I read through all my notes like 3 or 4 times. I even read the book. And I'm like, okay, so what you're doing is you're becoming familiar with the topic, but you're not really truly testing yourself. And this is where testing effect comes in. I also call it overlearning. And so when you are preparing for a speech, for a test, that sort of thing, a performance of any sort, testing effect is a way that you overlearn something. And instead of reading through everything that you need to do, whatever it is that you need to memorize, that you need to learn, you actually test yourself on it by covering it up. And I know it seems like a simple technique, but there are so many. If you are a parent of a student or you are a student and you're listening to this is a huge mistake that so many people do, is this familiarity piece instead of truly testing yourself on it. And this is why. So we have 2 ways to be tested. One is through recall and one is through recognition. And recall is going to be where you have to remember something without any hint, any clue whatsoever. This is a more difficult test of memory. And so that would be something like an oral quiz where I just simply asked you, who is the 7th president of the United States? I give you no hints whatsoever, and you have to come up with the answer, okay? Now that's incredibly difficult. The second form of, and by the way, the answer is James Polk. The second test of memory is something called recognition. And this is going to be something like a multiple choice test, where you're given a question and you have the answer in front of you. So there are multiple choices that you can choose, but the answer is there. So recognition is going to be an easier way to remember something because you have a cue, you have a clue, you have a hint there. So when you practice testing effect, what you're really doing is you're doing a test of recall prior to your official exam, speech, presentation, test, whatever it is. So when you do that, you overlearn it. So if you're given a multiple choice test and you've practiced this using recall for, leading up to the event, then you're going to be much, much better prepared for it. So always test yourself based off of recall prior to being challenged with a test of memory. Okay. The second piece is something called metacognition. This is not only related to memory per se, but it's also related to all sorts of mental processes, all sorts of ways that we think. Metacognition is us thinking about the way we think. So it's in essence, it's thinking about thinking. And my students asked me an incredibly great question the other day. And they asked, like, why are some people better at thinking about thinking than others? And I told them, well, it's both genetic and it's environmental. Genetic, obviously, it's being passed from generation to generation. But environmental is the more we give opportunities for our people to think about the way they think, the more cognizant, the more aware they become of their thinking. So when we are thinking about thinking, we're actually technically processing like how we're thinking, how our thinking can get in the way of us retrieving memories, how our thinking can get in the way of how we perceive things truthfully, and it can get in the way of even the simplest task, such as what grocery store we prefer. So when we start thinking about the way we think, let's say about a grocery store, we're going to start analyzing, why do I like that grocery store? Why do I think that grocery store is better? Right now, my producer's smiling right now, and I love that when I hit on these topics. But when you start thinking about the way you think, then you can start logically and critically processing how you remember things, how you perceive things, and how you think about things, ideas, people, history, all that sort of stuff. Metacognition gives us a deep, deep understanding of more than just who we are, but how we think about ourselves and about the world around us. So metacognition is just an amazing approach to the way we think and the way we remember things. So in conclusion, testing effect and metacognition are two ways that can be incredibly beneficial for improving your memory. Testing effect, because you are constantly challenging yourself to remember things without any hints, and then metacognition, where you're actually challenging how you are thinking about thinking. In a future episode, I'm going to be talking about metacognition related to how we perceive things and how things like mood and our current state can impact our memory. So just a little tidbit on something that we're going to be doing in the near future. So thank you again for joining us. A reminder that MysterE's is on anywhere that you can find a podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. A big thank you to our producer, Bear Wade, and his new branded company called Sizzle. So if you are interested in that, make sure that you contact us with that. We'll go ahead and make that available to you, his website and his contact information. So thank you again all for joining us. I hope you got a little piece from this, and I, of course, certainly hope you remember it. Okay, you guys have a great day.